writes very succinctly and very clearly, and kind of in some way simple ways to help understand. This is the way he described today's feast of baptism of the Lord. He describes the mystery of baptism in one sentence, and it's a longer one, but it says a lot. God desired to save us by going to the bottom of this abyss himself, so that every person, even those who have fallen so low that they can no longer see heaven, may find God's hand to cling to and rise from the darkness to see once again the light for which he or she was made. You know, that sense of going to the abyss, falling to the bottom of the pit in a sense. And in that place, he's saying to see, you can't see heaven from there. So it's the way it feels, as if you cannot see heaven. And you grab for the hand of God to pull you up. That's what he describes as baptism. And then if we think about it, we probably find ourselves occasionally deep in that abyss. Or maybe on any given day we have some sense that we cannot see heaven. When I read that one time, it came to my memory, especially for my own life. And it happened right here in MPG by chance, many years ago. I was a seminarian studying, this was my second year in the seminary, and I came home for vacation. But then went to see my friends, of course, and we came to Mankato, the big city, for some action, I guess, and we went to a party. And I had a couple of beers that night. We came out of the party, and the police car fell in behind us. And he pulled us over, and before long, he hauled us down to the police station and booked us for consumption underage. I was 19 at the time. Age, of course, was 21. And it wasn't long before you had to have $50 cash to bail, and I didn't have $50 cash, so I ended up in the Blue Earth County Jail that night. You didn't know your pastor had a police station. Sorry to break your news. And it wasn't, when that Justice Center opened, I went out there to tour and see their jail, and I thought, wow, these are pretty nice. And it wasn't the one down here, the law enforcement center. I've been up there visiting too. Those aren't too bad. We were in the old Blue Earth County Jail, and that place is a pit. And we crawled down into that place, and I laid in that cell alone that night with just one bare light bulb. And it was really the experience of being in the lowest point, not only physically, but it seemed where I was in great despair. Probably because I first of all thought, here I am studying to be a priest, and I probably will get kicked out of the seminary because of this. And secondly, I think just as a person, I felt bad, and as if I was unable to see heaven. That's a good description. I could not see any sense of hope there. And I just lay awake all night in despair, trying to pray, and really trying, I think, to reach for that hand of God to pull me out. And I think it was an experience, really as I think back on it, of grabbing on to that hand of God and just trusting that he could pull me out. And it happened through my mother, who came down the next morning and bailed me out, which was great. She was not happy with what I had done, but she really was very tender with me in helping me get back to school and knowing that this had not been an easy thing. And I went in to see the rector of the seminary, and I thought, oh boy, this is it, but obviously standing here, he didn't, he understood too, I think. He must have seen how devastating it was for me, and he said, I think you probably learned your lesson, so I'm not going to kick you out of the seminary. So it was kind of like the first time, I think, that when I thought of my vocation, that I really had not, even to that point, even though I was 2 years into the seminary, I really still didn't think I could do it, that I wanted to do it. And suddenly, I found myself kind of fighting for it, that I do want to stay in the seminary, and I do think I want to be a priest. It was really kind of a big turning point in my vocation. And then with God, it really, I think, that sense of God's care with me. As I said, this is a great description of pulling me out of the abyss. I really, maybe for the first time, began to sense how God does that. I don't know if I could have even put it into words. And it really, I think, today maybe calls us to think about that in our own lives. Because Jesus is coming among us, and today, our celebration of his baptism, we might wonder, why did Jesus even need to be baptized? Because he was the Son of God and never committed any sins. And yet, the Pope describes here is that Jesus came into this world, into the abyss in a sense, into the experience that we have as humans, and he too went under the water. And that is the experience of baptism that we don't know so much because we were baptized as babies, most of us. But when you go under the water, you feel like you're going to die, or it's just a shock to the system. And that's the experience of baptism, is that you go down into the abyss and you come out to new life, to be able to breathe again. And that's what Jesus did with John the Baptist. He walked into the Jordan River and he experienced the same thing that we do, of being in the abyss. And yet, when Jesus came out, as it described in the Gospel, it said the Holy Spirit came down, and God blessed him and said, "You are my beloved. My favor rests on you." And that sense of the Holy Spirit is the same in our lives, I think. We think about it, is the gift of the Holy Spirit at baptism that really, in a sense, is that hand of God reaching down to us. We don't know it so much because as babies, but I think it's still there, and it keeps happening in our lives because we find ourselves in that place, don't we? We find ourselves in the pit, and we keep reaching for that hand of God, and that's God's Spirit that is really coming down to each of us. So maybe as we celebrate the feast today, it's a good time to be conscious of those moments of brokenness in our own lives, when we especially reach for healing, or when our lives seem really with so many doubts and questions about what is happening, and we don't seem to have the answers. Somehow we reach out and we ask for faith. And when our life is really in that pit of despair, we don't know how we can make it through. Somehow God gives us that little touch of hope. So today we ask that God's gentle hand be given to us, and that we are able to trust in the power of the Spirit in each of our lives. Let me read that sentence again. God desired to save us by going to the bottom of this abyss himself, so that every person, even those who have fallen so low that they can no longer see heaven, may find God's hand to cling to and rise from the darkness to see once again the light for which he or she